Hey, peace. Amani Nanguvu Uhuru to the family out there. Welcome to another episode of We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club. Going strong. I know we've been doing this for more than 2 years. I gotta check when we started. We still going strong and want to appreciate everybody that continues to support us. Make sure you like and share if you're viewing now or when you'll view. When you will be viewing this, make sure you like and share and subscribe to the channel if it's your first time joining us. I am Akimba Ajore, host of We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club, and one of the organizers. And I'm here with my comrade.
Peace, everyone. This is Frank, host for the Revolutionary Perpetuation Educational Lecture Series, held every Sunday at 1 p.m.
All right, and the 1/3 of the trio is not here this morning. Natasha, peace and power to her. She's doing a lot of organizing. She's been organizing, leading up to organizing for the Curb Fest for political prisoners happening in New York City. That's on September the 16th. So if you're in New York City or in the area, or you want to travel to the area, make sure that you first of all go to curbfest.org. I think I'll put a link in the chat so that you can have access to that. But make sure that you September 16th, put that on your calendar in Brooklyn, New York, at the Ujamaa Health and Food Store in Crown Heights. Curbfest for political prisoners, raising awareness of our political prisoners that are still locked down here in the United States, and just organizing, making sure that we support the brothers and sisters who put their life on the line, put their the freedom. I don't even want to say freedom because they was fighting for freedom, right? But they put their life on the line to make sure that that we were liberated, and we're still part of this struggle for liberation. We're still fighting against the colonial empire. With that being said, that's why we charge colonialism, right? With that being said, too, just another addition: the NPDUM convention is happening this next weekend, Saturday and Sunday in St. Louis. But you can also attend the convention virtually. I'll put a link to the registration page in the chat. So make sure you register for the NPDUM convention. That's the International People's Democratic Uhuru Convention happening next week, Saturday and Sunday. Register as soon as possible. All right. So we're going to get into our weekly roundup. What we do, as usual, go into our weekly roundup, and then we transition into our book reading. We're still reading Stolen Black Labor. Where this will be our final day covering Stolen Black Labor by Chairman Omala Yeshitela. And then we'll be transitioning into Set the World on Fire, which I'm looking forward to getting into that particular reading. We're going to be looking at Black women and the Black nationalist movement. So that's Set the World on Fire the next time we come back. So look out for that. And you'll be able to find that book in our Google Drive as well. So that's Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women and the Global Struggle for Freedom. And that was written by Keyshawn Blaine. All right, so looking forward to that. All right, so Frank, you want to start us off, or you want me to start off with the?
No, start off, and then I can follow you after.
All right, Frank always get me, man. Well, so on our weekly roundup, I wanted to cover the story about Takaya Young. This is a new story out of Columbus, Ohio. So I don't know how many people are aware of the sister Takaya Young, who was murdered by the police in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. I won't show the video footage of that. I'll pull up the story a bit so we can look at what happened, though. And there's going to be a whole lot of opinions. Not this. There's going to be a whole lot of opinions on what happened when you see the video, who was to blame, who was at fault, what should have been done to prevent this killing. Oh man, I missed the story. All right, so I won't pull that story up, but I'll talk about it and I'll go to this instead. So Takaya Young, who was accused of shoplifting, and the two police officers who were on the scene were redirected from what they were doing, and they went over to uh, confront or detain Takaya Young, who asked what was going on, why is she being detained, and then she attempted to flee from the scene, and she was shot and murdered by one of the police officers on the scene. And when you see the video, like I said, it's going to be a whole lot of opinions on what should have been done and how this could have been prevented. But I think what's going to be missing in this whole conversation or discussion about this incident or this murder is how did Takaya Young even get to the point where she felt like she had to shoplift from that store? For one, shoplifting shouldn't be a sanction for murder. This sister should not have lost her life, especially for apparently stealing from a grocery store. And there's going to be this talk about or this argument that she, almost ran over a police officer. The police officer who stood in front of the car and pulled out his weapon, his gun, before she attempted to flee. She asked, "Are y'all going to shoot me?" This was a sister who was in fear of her life. We talk about we talk about these the argument or the defense for someone shooting another person being in fear of their life. So the police officer was in fear of their life, or this person was in fear of their life, and that's why they shot and killed or potentially killed someone in a confrontation. And so, these things are going to be argued, police officer, but this sister was in fear of her life, right? And especially in the climate that we're in, under the conditions that we're in, where there's a history of police violence against African men and women in America, but all over. But this state-sanctioned violence has people on edge. But again, like, I want to even go beyond just that incident and just talk about the colonial situation that is going to be missing this whole conversation, because we're going to look at this sister who was stealing from the grocery store. How did she get to that point? And this was a woman who was pregnant with 2 children. And there apparently, there probably was some mental health issues and all of that was going on too. But there's not going to be any conversation about how the system had failed this sister and fails millions of more Africans across the United States. So it's a sad situation. But this story that I pulled up, just to show you the contradictions within the colonial system and conversations we won't have. We'll talk about shoplifting, but wage theft is a much bigger problem than other forms of theft, but workers remain mostly unprotected, right? And this is including shoplifting, bank robberies, and so forth. Wage theft, employers' failure to pay workers money they are legally entitled to, affects far more people than more well-known and fair forms of theft, such as bank robberies, convenience store robberies, street and highway robberies, and gas station robberies. Employers steal billions of dollars from their employees each year by working them off the clock, by failing to pay the minimum wage, or by cheating them of overtime pay they have a right to receive. Survey research shows that well over 2/3 of low-wage workers have been the victims of wage theft. 2/3 of, well, that's 66. And we all know that the percentage is probably higher than 66%, right? Closer to that 70%, 75%. In 2012, there were 292,000 1,074 robberies of all kinds, including bank robberies, residential robberies, convenience store and gas station robberies, and street robberies. The total value of the property taken in those crimes was $340,850,358. By contrast, the total amount recovered for the victims of wage theft who retained private lawyers or complained to federal or state agencies was at least 933 million in 2012. This is the total amount that was recovered, right? So there's millions, perhaps billions of dollars that was not recovered. This is almost 3 times greater than all the money stolen in robberies that year. Further, the nearly 1 billion successfully reclaimed by workers is only the tip of the wage theft iceberg, since most victims never sue and never complain to the government. Wage theft is a much bigger problem than robbery. So I'll stop there, right? And just going back to the story, the sister, Takaya Young, who lost her life because a person pointed her out to the police officers and said that she had stole something from the grocery store. And this ended with the taking of a pregnant woman's life and a mother of 2 other children. And regardless of what people say, because I know there's going to be this argument of she should have did this or she should have did that. It was the system that failed her, and it was the excessive use of force on the sister that was the reason why she lost her life. So Frank, I'm gonna pass it to you. I know I've been going on.
No, I'm going to start with this comment from Shiba. It says, meanwhile, grocery store are throwing out food. I'm going to start with that comment. Meanwhile, grocery store are throwing out food. And if you go to Burger King, they are also throwing out food. You go to McDonald's, they are also throwing out food. And here is this person, a pregnant woman with children left behind. And this woman had been killed along with her innocent baby in there, who have not even seen this cruel war, and you shot this woman and kill her along with her baby. For what? For food. For what? For food. And that particular grocery store might even be throwing out food every time, every day. They might be throwing out food. Now, like you said, the main focus is going to be she was shoplifting. Shoplifting what? Food to eat. Now, this is what they're going to miss. She had a key point. So are you going to shoot me? Are you going to shoot me? She asked them a question, folks, because she saw guns. She saw weapons. If, in my belief, they was going to approach her by telling her, oh, no, we're not going to shoot you. Or if they were going to put their weapons down, I don't think she was going to run away. But I believe when she asked them that question, are you going to shoot me? The answer they gave her was not favorable. So if you see your life in danger, what do? Do you stand or do you run? You escape. You try to find a rescue area. Even the police themselves. Why do they shoot? They shoot because in their defense, they always says, I was afraid of my life. So if you are afraid of your life, you have a weapon, you shoot. So if she's afraid of her life and she does not have a weapon and she have her legs, what she do? She run. Now, if she's running, that says to you that she don't have weapons. She already asked you, are you going to shoot me? So the question she asked, are you going to shoot me? That means if you're going to shoot me, I'm going to run for my life. If you are not going to shoot me, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stay here till you look into the matter. And I believe when she asked them that question, are you going to shoot me? They gave her a question, an answer that, hey, you woman, either you are talking too much, and why did you steal? And they never gave her answer as a police to de-escalate the problem. And that's why she was afraid. That's why I got her in her car to even try to escape, because when she asked them, they never gave her any answer that would make her to stay or not for her to get in her car. Now, there have been a lot of shoplifting, I believe. Now, somebody going to say I'm throwing the race card. There have been a lot of shoplifting that have been involved, not with black people, with other race. But at that point of time, they caught them. They never even called police. They gave them food to eat, and they said, "Why are you shoplifting?" I believe, and they gave them food to eat. But when it is the other way around, they don't ask what is going on. Are you hungry? I mean, police, security officers, you are there to protect life and property. You saw a pregnant woman, and she's looking for food to eat. She's not robbing. She's not stealing clothes. It's food, and she's pregnant. It need to come to your mind that she's hungry, and even the baby in her stomach also hungry. A pregnant woman, she's helpless. I think the police or the security officer should have been bought her a food or bought her food and give it to her and even escort her to where she lived. They did not even do no investigation. And you pull out a gun on a pregnant woman? Where is the strength that she have? But like you said, because it involved black person, they're not even going to look at the circumstances in which she was in, being pregnant, hungry, and the baby in her stomach also hungry, helpless, and they kill her. So the system is going to protect the police. Number one, she was caught shoplifting, and she was caught, and she escaped. She shouldn't have escaped. She should have stayed there. Why did she escape? That's not an answer. That's not a reason to shoot and kill someone. When white people kill black people, point blank, and they never got killed, they never got shot. They caught them and took them to McDonald's and gave them food. Hey! Someone went and killed people and boast of it that I kill you. This person have weapons, and you caught this person, and the person told you, I'm hungry, and you took this person to McDonald's and bought them Big Mac and gave them some Pepsi, the large Pepsi or the large or whatsoever Coke, and they ate, and you took them home and they took shower after somebody murdered somebody, and then before taking them to police custody. Man, I don't know what to say. I stopped.
Yeah, nah, I'm with you. This police officer wanting to stand in front of the car, they was looking for, and just a little some information about the county that she was in. 76%, this is a Blendon Township. 76% of the county is white. 11% of the county is black. 0%, I wanted to put this at 0% of the county is Native American, right? Here we are sitting on indigenous people land, and you can't even find one Native American, or at least full Native American indigenous person in this county, right? And that just speaks to the contradiction that exists within this empire, this colony, this settler colony, where whole people are wiped out, and you can go into communities and not one single indigenous person lives in that community. But back to the story, though, just wanted to uplift this. I think it's important. They continue to get away with these murders because we don't take it behind just the police violence that takes place. We got beyond that, I should say. We got to go beyond that because the state that sanctions this violence, they're able to do it, at the behest of the ruling class in this country, that are working. They are working in tandem to repress African people within these colonial borders. They're the whole setup of this society is to protect the property. As you see that they will kill you for taking property. They will kill you for taking property from someone in this country. So yeah, just wanted to uplift that. We can move on to the next story, Frank. Want to take it away?
Yeah, the next story is about ECWA being exposed once again. As we all know, on the African continent, we have seen recently what is going on, and true liberation, true revelation, is taking place. So once again, ECWA, AU, they have been exposed, and they keep exposing themselves. So let me show a short video here, and then before we talk about it. And by the way, tomorrow we're going to be talking about Gabon. Again, ECWA or AU have been exposed as well in a Gabon situation. Before the election, a lot of people have not yet seen it, but have come across, and the research. Before the election, AU or an ECWA, they were planning along with their colonial master to put another puppet in place. First of all, that's why the coup took place. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to uncover that story. All right, that's why the coup took place, because ECWA, AU, they were planning along with their colonial master to put another puppet in place, but they were waiting. They were waiting, okay, for which or who their colonial master, have chosen. And then ECWA was going to put this person in power. All right. So, because since independent days up to 2023, Gabon have only two presidents. The father died, and the father gave the position to the son. Now, this current government, he went for first term, second term, and then the third term, he was even already paralyzed. So he was also planning to put his son into office. You see it? He was also planning to put his son in the office. Now, this is where, again, the United States and EU, they always talk about democracy on the African continent. They were planning along with their puppet organization in Africa called ECWA and AU to instill or to put somebody in power with the approval of the imperialists. But that did not work. And they also tried to talk behind the scene with the opposition leader. But the opposition leader said no, because they was trying to talk behind the scene. It was not in favor of the opposition leader or to put opposition leader in power. So you see what went on in, how they call it, Gabon. All right. So like I said, tomorrow we're going to cover the story, but let's see what I'm talking about here about ECWA. And then I'm going to go, a little bit into it, and then we can discuss that.
This afternoon is to explain our position to the European Union, what has informed the various measures that ECOWAS has taken, and the collaboration we seek from all our partners. As you know, the world is a global village. One event in a particular place affects the whole world. So that is why we find it important to come to Spain to talk to our partners from the European Union so that they understand what we're doing and give us the support that they are able to give us.
Now, folks, if you listen to this video, do you see how disheartening it is? For ECWA to leave Africa, 55 nations in Africa, a whole continent, you leave it, and then go to Europe, travel all the way to Europe. to go tell European that you need their support. For where? For what? For who? You went to Europe to seek their support to come and solve African problem created by European. They say European that say they should reinstill Bazoo. They say European that say they do not need any good for Africa and for African people. They see European that say African people should fight. They see people that support the terrorist activities in Africa. You go to them for help, for support. Now, you went to Europe for support for what? Who is your enemy? Like, look, who is ECOWAS enemy? Who is exactly ECOWAS enemy? That ECOWAS have to go to Europe. If anybody is ECOWAS enemy, it's Europe, it's NATO. They see NATO, they see European nation went today and destroy Libya. So they are your enemy because they destroy Libya, they kill Gaddafi, they kill another African leader. So if anybody is ECOWAS enemy, are the people that kill Gaddafi. If anybody is ECOWAS enemy, are the people that destroy Libya today. If anybody is ECOWAS enemy, are the people that are supporting the terrorist activities in Africa. And you leave, and then you go to the same people, telling them you need their support. Their support for what kind of support Europe going to give you? Who is fighting Africa? Who is fighting African people? They say European, and then you go to them for support. Who are you coming to fight? Look, this is a disgrace to ECOWAS and AU. Complete disgrace. All along, there have been terrorist activities in Africa, in Niger, in Chad, okay, in Mali, okay, in those regions. ECOWAS have never come out to say they're going to Europe and America to ask them for support, to ask them for ammunition, to go and fight the terrorists. But when African people are fighting for freedom, African people are resisting the imperialists, the colonizer, the oppressor, then you go to the sea oppressor, telling them you need their support. Since when do we have global village? Since when do we have global village? Oh, when it is not in the interest of Europe and America, then that's the time we have global village. But when it is in their interest, when it is not in African people's interest, we don't have global village. But when it is in our interest, when we are standing out and taking position, reclaiming our belonging, then now that's the time we have global village. When we are telling Europe and America what they have done in society, what they have done against black people, what they have done against African people, then they use this bourgeoisie, they use these colonial loyalists to come and tell us we live in a global village. We live in a global village. Then why Niger is the poorest country in the world with the exploitation of uranium? If we live in a global village, why do you want to take electricity all the way to Europe when millions of Africans on the African continent do not have electricity? If we live in a global village, why our mineral resources are making the colonial master rich while we are poor? If we live in a global village, why the wealth are not shared equally? In fact, we are the one to be supplying, to be giving aid to Europe and America. Since when do we have global village? These are the organizations we have in Africa, like ECOWAS and AU. And I say to my African brothers and sisters today, we have no respect for ECOWAS and AU, and we have no organization on the African continent to fight for Africa. ECOWAS and AU, they are colonial puppet. They've been serving the interests of Europe and America. And we should have no regard for them, and we should have no respect for them, because they have gone to Europe for Europe to give them ammunition so that they can come and kill African. It makes no sense to go to Europe telling them we need your support. It makes no sense for them to go to Europe to give them report of what they have done. Oh yes, the reason why they went there, because it is these people that are telling them what to do after they have given them crumbs. Who told you if you manage your resources and empower your people, you will not be rich? Who told you if you manage your resources in Africa to empower your people, you will not be millionaire? Who told you if you manage your resources in Africa and empower your people and give a good life to Africans, you will not be billionaire? Who told you? Who told you that the only time you will be recognized unless you give the resources to Europe and America? That's the time you'll be recognized as African leader. That's complete dummy. And that is why you African that support ECOWAS and AU, you guys are all dummy. And henceforth, going from now on, we do not have any organization in Africa called AU and ECOWAS. We will not listen to you people, and we will not take our problem to AU and ECOWAS because you guys have been exposed.
Yeah, appreciate that. And they're exposing themselves, right? Really bold. Sit up there, travel to Spain. Well, I mean, just think about that. You know, this African in Spain talking about our EU partners and looking to get support from the EU in Spain. Look at the history of Spain. Spain was the country that came to the Americas and colonized the Americas. They are the ones who paved the way for the colonization and the enslavement of African people. When we look at Spain and countries like Portugal, you know, these Africans coming over on Portuguese and Spanish ships by the thousands, tens of thousands a year, right? That's the history of this country that we're talking about. So, you know, I mean, serious contradiction. You kind of just hit on everything. I think when we look at ECOWAS and we look at AU, you know, it's interesting that these countries, they'll try to mask their neocolonial position, their neocolonial policies through the idea of Pan-Africanism, right? And people will get fooled by this because they'll look like, oh, this is Pan-Africanism, AU, ECOWAS, African countries working together and so forth, right? But when you look closely at their policies and what they are pushing forward, they're pushing forward policies that align with the colonial agenda, that align with the European agenda. They're doing their best to integrate African people into this global economy. And this is the path. They think that this is the path to the advancement of African people. But what happens, and this is why we see these neo-colonists talking about partners and so forth, because there's a bourgeois segment of the African community that benefits from this relationship. And so a severing of this relationship, a dismantling of the colony is going to mean the doom. You know, that it's going to mean the doom to the position and power of the African bourgeoisie. And this is why we got to read Nkrumah, you know, class struggle. We got to read Africa Must Unite, because he was warning, or neocolonialism being the last stage of imperialism, because he was warning us of what was going to happen and what was going to take place. And this is why Nkrumah was taken out of power. This is why, and you know, our enemies, these people who they call in their partners, removed Nkrumah, assassinated Patrice Lumumba, isolated Sekou Touré, right, and murdered countless other African revolutionaries because they weren't speaking the language of partnership and dependency and aid and going to the EU or Europe for help. They understood that all of the help that we need was right here in Africa. All of the resources that we need, all of the people that we need to be building partnerships with right here in Africa. They understood that, and that's why they had to be taken out. So appreciate the story. I don't know if you had any other thoughts.
No, we can go ahead into the book.
Yeah, so we're going to move into the book club. As usual, powerful discussion, um, powerful stories, just so we can highlight what's happening. And this is only the tip of the iceberg of what's taking place, and there's more to come. Definitely tune in tomorrow. Brother Frank is going to dive into the Gabon coup and situation as we speak. And so we're reading, this is the last day we're going to be looking at Stolen Black Labor by Chairman Amali Yashatella of the African People's Socialist Party. I think I'll put the link, I believe I put the link in the chat, but you can go into the description. We're going to be reading from page 73. Just going to share my screen, and make sure you like and share, family. Appreciate y'all always coming and tuning in and supporting the channel. And we just going to keep on bringing this content, and we're going to continue to expand. And definitely looking for people who want to get involved and support us behind the scene, whether it's with social media, website. So if you're interested, reach out to us at wechargecolonialism@gmail.com. Where I'm at. Here we go. Boom. And so really quick before I get into that, I just want to share the link to the book in the chat. And again, Curb Fest is this September 16th in New York. Actually, they're having a Curb Fest in Baltimore today. For anybody that's in Baltimore or in the area, September the 2nd is the Curb Fest in Baltimore. And you can go to curbfest.com, actually, curbfest.com, to get more information about the Curb Fest. I'm going to put that in the chat right now. Boom. Right? Because there's Curb fests that happen every year in Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, Boston. There may be one in Newark this year. And if you want to host a Curb Fest to uplift political prisoners, go to that website and reach out, contact the people behind Curb Fest to find out how you can get involved and organize a Curb Fest in your locale, so we can continue to uplift our political prisoners and prisoners of war. All right. So let me share this. All right, here we go. That's the link. We're on page 73. And I'm going to get right to it. Adapting Neocolonial Exploitation to the Domestic African Colony, 1945 to 1982. The New Deal. After the First World War, U.S. imperialism was riding high. The entire world had been divided among the capitalist nations. The U.S. had come out of the war as the rising power in the world, and except for the threat of socialism, which had found a foothold in Russia, her power seemed secure. But by the early 1930s, imperialism was facing new challenges. It was going through fundamental transformations. The transformations were accomplished through the crisis of the Great Depression. Bourgeois historians often describe this as a crisis which simply happened to capitalism and over which businessmen had no control. In fact, the Great Depression was caused by a decision by the major corporations that were not able to increase profits sharply enough under the economic structures, which had numerous small and medium-sized enterprises, each competing for survival, and which saw the whole agricultural sector operating through small family-sized farms. By precipitating a crisis in the stock market and commodity exchange market, these corporations created a situation in which thousands of businesses were ruined, tens of thousands of farms were sold for bankruptcy, and millions of workers were dislocated. It was not all bad news for the capitalists. However, for this was the period in which a much greater concentration of capital was achieved. And with the ruin of lesser capitalists came the modernizing of the economy. The Depression years were when the Empire State Building, the San Francisco Bay Bridge, the Golden State Bridge, and many other mammoth construction projects were accomplished, when the irrigation of California's Central Valley and the establishment of the first giant agribusiness farms was completed, and when U.S. control of Latin America, much of Africa, and the Pacific was consolidated. These were also the years in which colonized people all over the world were rejecting imperialist control and fighting for self-determination and independence. White workers in the capitalist centers were likewise disillusioned and in rebellion against the capitalist system. Clearly, the old form of colonialism was not going to survive. In response, U.S. planners and managers modernized their concept of economic and social planning. In economics, they turned to John Maynard Keynes, who adapted the scientific evaluation of the sources of wealth, the workings of the market, and the material basis of currency values, which came from Marx, to bourgeois planning systems. The main impact of Keynesian economics was to assign the imperialist state a much greater role in managing the overall operation of capitalism and in controlling the economy through massive taxation and spending. On the social front, the U.S. government offered the North American workers a quote-unquote New Deal under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a deal which would be hard to turn down since it incorporated many of the demands which had dominated the trade unionist working class struggle of North Americans for the previous 100 years. Unemployment insurance, minimum wage laws, and the right to organize trade unions. In short, it was the institutionalization through official government sanction of the opportunism which had characterized the white left from the beginning and which marked the dismal failure of the Communist Party USA in providing revolutionary leadership in the struggle for socialism. Where was the material support for this quote-unquote New Deal to come from? Why didn't the old captains of industry at the turn of the century offer such a New Deal instead of carrying out bloody strike-breaking attacks? Because what they couldn't do in 1916, they could do in 1936. By 1936, the structures of imperialism had succeeded in concentrating such a huge amount of capital in the imperialist center, had put to work and extracted vast tribute from such broad expanses of colonized people throughout the world, that they were in a position to make a settlement within the North American working class, which was unprecedented. The New Deal for North American workers was based on the centuries of wealth ripped off from the African people inside the U.S. and from the growing expanse of colonies throughout the world. The North American left in the 1930s had mobilized and seized control over millions of African workers in the South and in northern cities, only to use our impetus as a bargaining chip in their overall settlement with capitalism. This betrayal reconfirmed African people's understanding of our need for independent political action and organizing and led to the tremendous Black Revolution in the decades after World War II. I could stop there for a minute because there was a lot, I think, to unpack. One thing, the Great Depression, right, that's spoken about, that the chairman is talking about here. I think that when we look at what happened during the Great Depression, first of all, African people always was experiencing the Great Depression in this country, right? This was the Great Depression for white folks and what they was experiencing. Of course, it trickled down and things got worse for the African community. But even when we got through the Great Depression in general, African people still had Great Depression numbers. So that's one thing, and this is what looking at things from the African-centered perspective. This is why looking at it from African-centered perspective is important. But it's also talking about like sort of like the restructuring. He's talking about the restructuring of this economy, which I think is important. Things that they couldn't do in 1916, they were able to do in the 1930s. With the Great Depression, it wasn't bad for for a certain sector of the economy. It allowed for a certain group in the economy, the ruling class, to concentrate their resources. They actually was able to gain more control and power as a result of the Great Depression. where we've seen a lot more people, a lot more wealth. Well, the wealth was being redistributed in a sense. Let's just say that the wealth was being redistributed in this country. And what's interesting is this guy John Maynard Keynes who came about, right? Because what you're having is competing ideas. There's a guy by the name of Friedrich Hayek, right? Who was sort of like this. He was he was a laissez-faire sort of capitalist dude. You know, Adam Smith, laissez-faire, no government intervention, let the market just go and do whatever. Let the government go without any regulations. So he wanted a purely free market. It was these competing ideas with him and John Maynard Keynes, and John Maynard Keynes was able to win out because of the conditions of the economy at that time. This is why context is so important, because things is going to change later when we get to like the oil crisis in the 70s, and then it was ripe for people like Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, but that's like fast forward. But at this particular time, though, Keynes was able to Keynes politics was able to be accepted by the state as an option for the economy, because laissez-faire basically failed, or at least that was the appearance, right? That it failed, and so you had more state control of the economy, or they had more say in the direction of the economy. And as it was mentioned here, as far as like the taxation, you'll see more money being pumped into the economy. This is how the economy was being saved. And so, in essence, though, it was ideas, socialist ideas and communist ideas that were being incorporated into the capitalist economy. This is what John Maynard Keynes was doing. So you were having bigger government. So with all that being said, though, I think, though, like the point, though, that I want to make is, like, this was the thing that saved the capitalist economy. But African people, the position that African people were in this economy as a colonized people, when all this was being done and this New Deal came about, these policies supported the white working class, the white laborers in this country, and they were able to benefit at the expense of the African working class. So when we talk about New Deal, and I think, let me go back to even that point right there. Where was if you can see that, where was the material support for this New Deal to come from? Why didn't the old captains of industry at the turn of the turn of the century offer such a New Deal instead of carrying out bloody strike breaks? I think it was right before this, right here in economics. I'm gonna read right here what says the main impact. The main impact of the Keynesian economics was to assign the imperialist state a much greater role in managing the overall operation of capitalism and in controlling the economy through massive taxation and spending. On the social front, the U.S. government offered the North American workers, we're talking about the white workers in this country, a New Deal under FDR, a deal which would be hard to turn down since it incorporated many of the demands which had dominated the trade unionist working class struggle of North America for the previous 100 years. So unemployment insurance, minimum wage laws, and the right to organize trade unions, right? So in short, it was the institutionalization through official government sanction of the opportunism which had characterized the white left from the beginning and which marked the dismal failure of the Communist Party USA. And this opportunism is important because they didn't align themselves with the African working class. They had the opportunity to do this. And so even when we look at, I'll leave it here, Frank, when we look at affirmative action and the history of affirmative action, the origins of affirmative action began during this time period in the 1930s, and it was actually to help give opportunities for white workers who were being isolated or being isolated for working in a union or being supporters of the union. So if you was a union worker, it was hard for you to get some of these jobs, right? And that's what was happening all the way up to the 1930s, and this will begin to change with the passing of some of these policies and because capitalism was in crisis. But African workers were still locked out of this, quote unquote New Deal. I don't know if did you have anything you wanted to add on, Frank?
Yeah, just to add on, that you asked a very good, good question. Like, I mean, if somebody have a plan to exploit you, somebody have a plan to take advantage of you, right? Why would they want to ally with you? They will never ally with you, because if they ally with you, how will their plan come true? By exploiting you, by taking advantage of you, by getting free what they need to get from you. Because if they ally with you, that means they will become friend with you. And either way, they may not get what they need to get for free. And when you look at this book that Chairman wrote, Omari wrote, he's just reminding also Africans, he's reminding us that these imperialists, they have never had any good thought, with any nation that they are going to exploit. They have never had any friendly relationship with any country, with any continent, that they are so focused is to go exploit, is to go take advantage of. They have never. And the book also reminds us that, I mean, this is what they are good at. This is what they do every time. When it comes to exploitation, when it comes to taking advantage of people, and, this is what they do, and they are very, very good at it. And it's reminding us that because they are good at it, this is why they've been succeeding. This is why they have never failed. Okay? And I would say either this time around, they might fail because African people, I don't want to say Africans have never resisted them. Okay? Africans have resisted them. But in this 21st century, 2023, the knowledge that African people have about them, we never had that knowledge in the past. And that's why it seems that, we never win, or we were not winning. But this time around, the knowledge we have about these imperialists is beyond. So there is no way, because of that vast knowledge, there is no way, because of what we have experienced. Because in the past, we never experienced what they did to us. But none that we have knowledge of them, none that we have experienced what they have done to us and they are still doing to us, it's going to be difficult for them to succeed how they have succeeded in the past, even though we still have some loyal puppet to them, like the ECOWAS, the AU, and some other individual Africans, okay, and other individual pastors, okay. They are still loyal to them. They are the ones still among us. But the masses of the people are aware of their game, and we will keep reminding them, and that is why we will keep exposing them. For each time they come out, we'll keep bringing out how they call it, resources, past experiences, past history, comparing it to current experience that we are going through, and let them know that no, this is not going to work. And I will say this 21st century, they are not going to succeed because we are aware of their game, we are knowledgeable of their game, and we are ahead of them. The reason why we are ahead of them, for each time they come out with a plan, we expose them. We already know. Like recently, after the Gabon incident happened, and idiots like Macron came on air in France, on French media, to say if it wasn't because of France, Mali wouldn't exist. Niger wouldn't exist. Okay? Burkina Faso wouldn't exist. He was brave to make such statement if it wasn't because of France. Now, fine, good. If it wasn't because of France, those nations wouldn't have exist, right? That's good. Now, the same nation are telling you to leave, and you don't want to leave. The same nation you say they are poor, they are telling you to leave, and you don't want to leave. In the past, we had those narrative. When they come out with aid, then we would take it and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, it's true because they are giving our aid. But not now, because we know that aid is the problem to Africa. In fact, it is not aid. It is our same money. It is our same resources that they are taking. How are you going to take $500 billion, okay, from nations in Africa and then come back and give each nation million? And then you say you are giving it, and then you say if it wasn't because of France, those nations would have existed. When it is the same nation that is giving you $500 billion every year. So who is making who to exist? You see, so because of the knowledge that we have now, it is making it difficult for them to for them to survive. Because for each time they come up with a statement, we will educate them and say, no, how will you say that when you are the one living on us? How will you say it because of France, Mali, or Niger existing? And it is because of Niger that you are surviving, you are getting current, that you are not dying of cold. It is because of Niger you are not starving. It is because of Niger your people have electricity to live a better life so that they can't die in cold. And that is why you are using ECOWAS to make sure to reinstate Bazoo so that you can get your pipeline running, so that you can't die. And then you say it is because of France that those nations are surviving. It is because of those nations that France is surviving, because you colonized those nations and you made them to sign paper back to the continuation of slavery, of colonization, of exploitation, and you've been exploiting them. Now these same people come out to say, we don't need your CFA, we want to have our own currency. And then you angry and then you say it is because of France that they survive. Okay, good. It is because of you we survive. So leave us alone. And this is where they're going to find it difficult, because the generation of today, the African generation of today, what are in Africa, what are out of Africa, we are uniting, we are connecting. And this is where Marco Garvey said, Negro unity is a threat to the imperialist. And his prophecy is coming to life. His prophecy is existing today. His prophecy is showing up. Negro unity is a threat to Europe and America. And that is what happening today. And they are so confused. And they will remain confused. And this is their downfall. We're not praying for it, but we're just taking what belongs to us. That's all.
No, absolutely, absolutely. That's bringing us to the top of the hour. I kind of wanted to do this last paragraph, man. Let me see. It's kind of long. Let's save it, man. But we actually moving on from this book, which was a powerful read. This is Stolen Black Labor by Chairman Amalia Shatella. You can find it in our Google Drive, WCC Books. The next reading, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be moving on to Set the World on Fire. That's going to be powerful. Next time we're back is September 23rd. The next couple of Saturdays is going to be a busy Saturdays. But you can definitely check Frank out on Sundays. Tomorrow he's going to be diving into Gabon. It's at 1 p.m., right?
1 p.m.
Right on. So make sure you tap into that. Also, I'll be coming back with the Blueprint for Black Power study session now that the Black August series has come to a close. So I'll be having those sessions. Look out for an update when those will take place. But our next book, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women and the Global Struggle for Freedom. That's going to be the next book that we tap into. So looking forward to that. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure that you like and share and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, say peace, Black Power, Guru, to all the family out there. Y'all take care.